In a village nestled in the shadows of New York's Catskill Mountains lived a man named Rip Van Winkle. He was a simple man, known and liked by all for his easygoing nature and yet also known for his peculiar aversion to work. Rip was a man of leisure, who would rather spend his days fishing or playing with the village children than toiling away in the fields. However, this laid-back lifestyle did not sit well with his wife. Mrs. Van Winkle, a woman of stern disposition and sharp tongue, was often heard voicing her frustrations at her husband's lackadaisical attitude. The constant nagging became a familiar tune in the Van Winkle household, much to Rip's dismay. The time was the eve of the Revolutionary War, a period of premonition and change. The air around the village was thick with uncertainty, but Rip remained blissfully detached, his world revolving around the simple pleasures of village life. One day, in an attempt to escape the incessant reprimands of his wife, Rip decided to embark on a hunting trip up the mountains. With his faithful dog Wolf by his side, he set out with his rifle slung over his shoulder, hoping to find some peace and quiet among the tranquil beauty of the Catskills. The mountains were a sanctuary for Rip, a place where he could escape the realities of life and lose himself in the majesty of nature. The serene silence of the mountains was a stark contrast to the constant chatter of his wife. As he hiked up the winding trails, the village and its troubles seemed to shrink away into insignificance. Deep in the mountains, Rip stumbled upon a strange scene. In the wilderness, where the trees whispered secrets to the wind and the air was thick with mystery, Rip's path crossed with the curious figure of an old man. This man, aged by time and weathered by the elements, had a face like a map of forgotten tales. He was dressed in old Dutch clothing, a relic from a bygone era, looking as though he had stepped out of a history book and into Rip's life. The old man was burdened with a keg of liquor, a heavy load that seemed to bear down on his frail shoulders. Rip, being the good-natured soul that he was, didn't hesitate to offer his help. Together they navigated the rugged terrain, the old man leading the way to a secluded glen. There, a group of silent men awaited, their faces hidden behind a curtain of thick beards. They too were dressed in the same old Dutch attire, a band of specters from the past. The keg was opened and the liquor flowed, a river of amber liquid that caught the light just so. Rip, though initially hesitant, was persuaded to partake in the drink. The liquor was strong, its taste as enigmatic as the men he found himself among. The drink warmed him from within, a heat that spread through his limbs and made his head spin. As the liquor took effect, Rip felt a drowsiness creep over him, a sleepiness that was impossible to resist. His eyelids grew heavy, the sounds around him started to fade, and the world blurred at the edges. He sank down to the ground, the grass cool and comforting beneath him. His last thought, as he teetered on the brink of consciousness, was of the strange men and their silent camaraderie. As Rip's eyes shut, he slipped into a slumber unlike any other. An otherworldly sleep, deep and dreamless, claimed him. The mysterious encounter in the mountains was the last thing he remembered as he surrendered to the call of the unknown. The world continued on its way, oblivious to the sleeping man and the strange tale that was yet to unfold. When Rip awoke, everything had changed. Imagine opening your eyes and finding your world turned on its head. That's precisely what happened to Rip Van Winkle. As he stirred from his slumber, he realized his loyal canine companion was nowhere to be found. His trusty gun, once shiny and new, was now rusted, aged by time he could not account for. And then there was his beard, grown a foot long, as if it had been years since he last trimmed it. Dazed and disoriented, Rip decided to return to the village, hoping to find familiarity and comfort in his humble abode. But as he approached, a sense of unease washed over him. The buildings, the pathways, even the trees seemed different, almost unrecognizable. It was as if he had walked into a painting, where everything was slightly off and nothing was as it should be. The villagers, too, were strangers to him. The faces he once knew like the back of his hand were replaced with new ones, each wearing expressions of confusion and curiosity mirroring his own. The children he had once played with were nowhere to be seen, and in their place stood adults he did not recognize. Rip's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to make sense of it all. Every corner he turned, every street he walked down, only deepened his confusion. His home, his sanctuary, was no longer his. The tavern, where he spent countless evenings sharing tales and laughter, was replaced with a bustling inn filled with unfamiliar faces. Even the village square, once the heart of the community, bore no resemblance to the one he remembered. The once vibrant village that Rip held dear in his heart felt like a dream, a distant memory that was slipping away from him. His once familiar home was now a puzzling alien landscape. Everything he held dear, everything he once knew, was gone, replaced by a reality that was as baffling as it was frightening. His world, as he knew it, had irrevocably changed. Rip's world had transformed in ways he could never have imagined. It wasn't just the landscape that had changed. The very fabric of his existence had been altered. He found himself in a world that was 20 years ahead of the one he knew. Imagine, if you will, falling asleep and waking up 2 decades later. That was Rip's reality. He wandered through the village, a stranger in a place he once called home. The faces he knew were all gone, replaced by new ones that looked at him with curiosity and confusion. His friends, the people he'd spent his carefree days with, were nowhere to be seen, consumed by the relentless march of time. His wife, the formidable Dame Van Winkle, was no longer alive. She had been a constant in his life, her sharp tongue as familiar as the mountains that surrounded the village. But now, she was gone, leaving Rip with a strange sense of loss and relief. The village itself had evolved. It was no longer the quiet, quaint place he remembered. It had grown, expanded, and was bustling with new energy. It was a world that had moved on without him, a world that had progressed while he slumbered. What baffled Rip the most, however, was the realization that he had slept through the American Revolution. He had missed the birth of a new nation, the struggle for freedom, and the victory that had followed. He was a man out of time, having missed a pivotal moment in his country's history. Rip was lost, grappling with the reality of his situation. He was a man from the past, trying to find his place in the present. His life had become a paradox, a testament to the relentless flow of time. And so, Rip Van Winkle had become a living relic of a bygone era. He was a symbol, a reminder of the time that was, a testament to the transformation of time. His story serves as a reminder that time waits for no one, and that change is the only constant in life. In the end, Rip's extraordinary tale became a village legend. Not just any legend, but one that captivated the hearts and minds of his fellow villagers. Rip, now an old man, spent his remaining years narrating his curious adventure. He would sit under the old tree, the same tree under which he had once dozed off, and would spin the tale with a twinkle in his eye. The villagers, young and old, listened with rapt attention, their minds wandering to the mystical world of Rip's past. The tale of Rip Van Winkle is not just a story of a man who fell asleep for 20 years. It's a story that encapsulates the themes of change, progress, and the inexorable passing of time. The world around Rip changes dramatically while he sleeps. His village transforms, his friends age, and the political landscape of his homeland shifts entirely. Yet Rip himself remains unchanged, a relic of a bygone era, suddenly thrust into a new world. This story reflects the rapid transformation of America during Washington Irving's time. A young nation, America was evolving at an unprecedented pace. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, society was modernizing, and the nation was expanding westwards. Irving's tale can be seen as a commentary on this transformation. Rip's awakening in a changed world can be likened to the awakening of a young America, struggling to come to terms with its rapid progress. The tale of Rip Van Winkle invites us to ponder, to reflect on the world around us. It encourages us to think about the relentless march of time, the inevitable change it brings, and how we navigate through it. As we journey through life, we too may find ourselves in Rip's shoes, waking up to a world that has transformed beyond our wildest dreams. And so, Rip Van Winkle's strange adventure reminds us of the relentless march of time and the extraordinary tales that life can weave. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel, like our videos, share and comment.